Welcome to the week number one overview for the economic analysis of the law class here at Rutgers University in Camden. And in the series that I'm going to be doing for each of the weeks, it's just to give you an overview, as it says here, of what to expect during the week. I won't be going into any details about particular items, but this is just to give you some sort of an idea of things that are going to be important during the week. So for week one of the first things we're doing is chapter 1, an introduction to law and economics. And as with most textbooks, what you have is just a brief introduction to the course and the material itself. So make sure you spend the time to read this chapter. It does give a very good overview of exactly what economic analysis of the law is and gives some examples of how it is used. But also realize that the section on the primacy of efficiency over distribution and analyzing private law is very important because this distinguishes what we normally look at the law, for example, as being punitive or in a punishment mode, whereas economic analysis of the law tries to espouse finding outcomes that are more efficient. So people, when lawyers look at this, they don't take any consideration into what is the most efficient outcome. So make sure you realize that that's the main focus of the course, and it's also the main difference from other types of courses is that we are looking at ways to analyze law and the enforcement of law, etc., in order to promote efficient outcomes. The chapter also goes over example why it's important for lawyers to study economics and why should economists have an understanding of the law. It's important. And also just read through the plan of the book. It outlines the purpose and how we are going to go about reviewing the material for the course. The second part is going to be chapter 2, and this is very important. I want to make sure everybody realizes this. The reason why this is important is that you really have to have a strong grounding in microeconomic theory. If you do not, you will struggle with some of the material for the course. So realize that this is a very important chapter and that you should put the requisite effort into this. So even if you've taken introductory micro courses or intermediate micro, make sure you work through this material diligently, because if you don't do well with this, it will make the rest of the course a bit of a struggle. So make sure you move through all those concepts, what microeconomic theory entails, have a notion of what is meant by maximization, equilibrium, and efficiency. Also, make sure you have a good grasp of the mathematical tools that economists use, and also make sure you have a good feel for consumer choice and demand, using indifference curves and budget constraints, etc., in order to find utility maximization, and also the theory of supply and using them together in equilibrium. Make sure you have a strong understanding of what an equilibrium is and what occurs when policies are put in place to that deviate from that equilibrium. Also, we're going to be doing a decent amount of game theory, so make sure you review that game theory section for the terminology, etc. What is an equilibrium, a Nash equilibrium, etc. So you're comfortable with that when we're doing that in the future. There's also a section on the theory of asset pricing. It's a good idea to have a good idea of what is meant by that. And also the general equilibrium and welfare economics part is also important. Be sure to also, there's a section on uncertainty, risk, and insurance. Make sure you understand that, the different assumptions about risk, risk neutrality, risk takers, risk-averse individuals, and how that impacts the different graphs that we are going to take a look at. Also, the role of profits in economic growth. And finally, there's a section on behavioral economics. I'm not expecting you to be an expert in behavioral economics, but make sure you understand what behavioral economics is and the terms that are used in the field of behavioral economics. And make sure I stress that, remember, in this first week, we have a test. The reason why I set this up this way is because I want to make sure that students have a sufficient background in microeconomic theory so they can do well in the remainder of the course. So remember, as opposed to other classes, Week one is intensive. It's an intensive week. Don't think, it's week one, there's not going to be much going on. Do not make that mistake. Make sure you put the requisite time into the section. Also, as a reminder, for the homework assignments, I would recommend that while you're doing the readings that you do the homework assignments. So just don't read the textbook and then go back and try and do the questions. I would highly recommend that you have a notion of what is actually assigned for you for the week. It's on Sakai. And then when you reach a particular problem, start working on it in a rough form so at least you have it started. Work through your readings, work through the homework assignments, and then once you finish the readings, go back to the homework assignments, and then shore them up a little bit. Critically look at your responses. Do you think it's robust enough? Have you put enough information? Did you explain yourself well enough? Make sure you go through that. That's one thing I got feedback from students from the last time I taught this, is that they thought that that would be a better way to approach things, to work on the homework assignments as they are doing the reading. So take that piece of advice, and hopefully that'll make the homework assignments, I don't want to say easier, but more manageable for you for this week and for the remaining weeks of the course.